and Savior Minarchy. No, seriously, I'm just kidding. Hi, my name's Rick Robinson. I am the general manager of KLRNradio.com. We are probably the largest independent podcast network that you've never heard of. We have a little bit of everything, and by that, what I mean to tell you is we have news, pop culture, special events, conspiratainment, true crime, mental health shows, drama productions, and pretty much everything in between. So if you're looking for a new podcast home to grab a little bit of everything that you love all in one place, come check us out. You can find us on X under @KLRNradio. You can find us on our Rumble and our YouTube channels under the same names. You can also find us at KLRNradio.com and pretty much every podcast catcher known to man. So again, feel free to come check us out anytime you like at KLRNradio.
Hi, everyone. This is JJ, the co-founder of Good Pods. If you haven't heard of it yet, Good Pods is like Goodreads or Instagram, but for podcasts. It's new, it's social, it's different, and it's growing really fast. There are more than 2 million podcasts, and we know that it is impossible to figure out what to listen to. On Good Pods, you follow your friends and podcasters to see what they like. That is the #1 way to discover new shows and episodes. You can find Good Pods on the web or download the app. Happy listening.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
And welcome into the Weekend News Roundup right here on KLRNradio.com, digitalbeaconusnews.com. I'm general manager of KLRN Radio, also managing editor, Digital Beacon US News. I'm Rick Robinson. I'm joined today by a host from SHR Media. You may know him, you may love him, although right now he's a disembodied head that you will occasionally see vibrate when he talks. But he's BZ from BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, who I have had the pleasure of guesting with several times. Unfortunately, Amy is not going to be able to join us this week. She's got some family obligations. And I think Brad might be having some technical issues because I know he and Amish weren't able to do their show last night. So we're gonna power through anyway, because I gotta say, what a difference a week makes, because this time last week, we were all lamenting the whole Virginia thing, and then everything changed. So how you doing, BZ? How's things?
I wish we had, just like I said last time, I wish we had stuff to talk about. And it's also sad that you guys didn't see me head bobbing to the Robin to the intro song, just like Rick was. And again, Rick, thanks for being here. Thanks for Jesus. Okay, Rick, thanks for being here today. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I mean, I seriously am thanking you. God,
Yeah.
what a moron.
I mean, seriously, you know, if it was your show, that sense would have made sense. But if it was your show, we could see you too. I still don't understand why Restream hates your camera so much when I can, because I switch between both of them all the time and never have an issue, but it's weird. Anyway, although we did discover something last night, which I didn't realize until earlier this morning when I went and checked your numbers. I was like, why is my feed only an hour and a half long? And then I realized what probably happened, because I usually have to tell my virus protection program, remind me tomorrow, and I wasn't in here to do it because I was off doing something else. I'm pretty sure my computer restarted, and I was like, well, normally on Restream, even if the person who's a guest leaves, the feed still stays up. And I'm like, I guess that doesn't happen on StreamYard, because yeah, you were on for 2 hours and 11 minutes. We had you for like an hour 37. Because yeah, and then it did when I came in here. It said your virus protection has been updated. I'm like, son of a bitch. But
anyway. I've had that happen where I've had a show and big tech will step in and say, hello, we're updating everything right now, and then everything is killed. But it's like normal. What is going on with YouTube? what is going on with X? What is going on with the tech of social media? You and I both exclaimed numerous times, and just before the show, the only consistency is inconsistency about any of this stuff. The analytics
Oh.
are just nuts.
Well, and again, it's one reason why I've been trying to steer folks towards platforms like Pickaxe, and I know it's a lot smaller, but it's old school over there. There's no algorithm, so you decide who you want to interact with. You decide who you want to follow. You decide who you don't want to listen to by either not following them, or if they annoy you, you can mute them, block them, just like you can with everywhere else. But there's not a computer program going, oh, we think you're really going to like this. And then the same thing that happens on X all the time. Why aren't you following Dollar Store Obama? Because I don't like Dollar Store Obama.
Yeah, it gives
That's
me a
why I don't
list
do
of crap units that I have zero interest in following.
it. But yeah,
What do you
before we
think about Pickaxe,
before we get into the serious stuff, I do want to play this real quick because the president actually was leaving to go to Florida today, and of course made it over and was leaving the White House and decided to do this crazy thing that I've never really seen a president do before, and it reminded me of something, but we'll get to that in a minute. So I'm not even going to talk about it anymore. I'm just going to play it. So.
Citizenship is under attack.
Tenemos los derechos están siendo tocados, incluyendo ataques al derecho de ciudadanía
So there you have the president in Marine One actually buzzing one of the May Day protests. And it reminded me of something. I don't know if it reminded you of the same thing or not, but it reminded me of something. And that something would be, if I could make it work right, because now it's not wanting to. Here we go. That something would be this right here, as soon as I can make it behave. Because as soon as I saw that, this is what I thought of.
Tower, this is Ghost Rider requesting a flyby.
Negative, Ghost Rider. The pattern is full.
No, ma'am. This is not a good idea. Sorry, Goose, but it's time to buzz the tower.
Uh-oh.
Now, it wasn't quite like that, but it's the first thing I thought of when I saw that. I'm like, okay, that was that. For a president who remind you is about to be 80 years old, for him to still just go out of his way to just troll people. I used to hate it. I used to hate it. Now I actually enjoy it.
Behave. I was expecting, I don't know, like turkeys to be kicked out of it. Oh, wait a minute. Frozen turkeys can't fly. I don't know why I was expecting more, but yeah, thank you for telling me what the protest was, because I would not have known. I was not in the in crowd for knowing that there's going to be a bunch of leftist dummies near the White House today for May Day, for labor.
They're everywhere. Like they showed a candid shot of Los Angeles today. It's just packed to the gills with crazy people celebrating communist bullshit. So yeah, fun times. But yeah, at first I was like, I kind of expected him to pull the whole Les Nessman thing and throw some turkeys out and be like, come back to the White House and be like, as God is my witness, I thought turkeys could fly. But
okay,
yeah,
I got to tell you a story about turkeys. Okay, geese were sent to the UK so that they could try perspex tests. That is to say, to see about bird strikes for plexiglass and perspex created in the UK. So American scientists sent them wild geese to be tested against the windscreens. The UK said they went right through them. And the Americans said, you got to unfreeze them first.
oh,
True story.
Wow. That's actually kind of terrifying in its own way.
Yeah,
When you think about the fact that these are scientists that didn't think, hey, maybe we should unthaw the turkeys first or the geese first. Yeah,
That's right.
fun times. All right, so we got to talk about this because this hit my feed today, and this is another one of those examples of that thing that they tell us was never going to happen is actually happening. The first openly gay chairman of DC's police union has been arrested on child sex abuse charges.
Dun, dun, dun.
Remember they kept telling us none of that, we didn't have to worry about it. None of that was going to happen. Because remember, the drag queen story hour was nothing about it other than making kids comfortable with people that are different than them. And I'm like, this is a bad idea. Bad idea.
And
But
if
yeah,
you put trannies into women's correctional areas, there won't be rapes.
yeah, dude. Well, I mean, so this is interesting because you and I are old enough to remember when there was no legal definition of rape for men if it was women performing the act, because in order to have that happen, there had to be a sense of arousal. So for the longest time, there was no legal definition of if a man was raped by a woman, because, well, if you are hard enough for that to happen, then how can you consider it rape? And that tripped me out the first time. One of my civics teacher was the first one that pointed that out, and that was in, I think, 90. And that wasn't that long ago, but yeah, even just as recently as then, there was really no legal recourse for men that were being assaulted or molested by women, because, well, if they were able to do that, you must have liked at least part of it. That's kind of sometimes it's a reaction that you can't really control, but at the same time, kind of like we were joking in the green room, this whole story with JP Morgan. If I was 30 years younger and one of my bosses was messing with me like that, and I was single, I'd been like, I don't care. I'm just saying. Now, if it's a crazy old woman, then it might be different. But that's like this gay guy who broke up with Winona Ryder because her boobs were too big and she liked to have sex too much. All I can say about that is the world is extremely unfair.
Yeah. One word: bonus.
Right? I'm like, so she's well endowed, pretty, and she likes to, and that's a problem. How?
During your show, I actually went to look at the bust size of Winona Ryder. She's 5'3" and a 32 double D.
Yeah,
which yielded my single word: bonus.
Right? See, I never even paid attention. I mean, the only time I really paid that much attention to Winona Ryder was when she was younger and she was doing like Beetlejuice and stuff. So that never even really occurred to me. But yeah, I'm just like, dude, I mean, granted, she's been a bit on the crazy side, back in the day, but sometimes crazy is fun. Just saying. Sometimes crazy is fun. But yeah. So this is making the rounds again. So this is from Polita Bunny, actually a couple of days ago. Jim Crow was a Democrat thing, weird flex, and she was responding to Reverend Raphael Warnock out of Georgia. Trump's Supreme Court is dragging us back to the dark and ugly days of Jim Crow, and someone responded to that, responding to her, "You should get educated. The party's changed. Why do you think Republicans are happy with his ruling, the one eliminating DEI, waving Confederate flags and protecting their monuments? Correct your flex. Your ignorance is showing." To which I responded, "There was no party switch. The left just changed how the plantations worked." And that's why they're so mad today, because that's the truth of it. Because they realized they couldn't really keep them on plantations anymore, but they started organizing voter plantations. And that's why they get so mad when somebody says, "Hey, you really can't do that." And everybody's like, "Oh my God, this is anti-American." I'm like, how is making sure people are treated the same regardless of what they look like anti-American? I thought that was the entire damn point.
Well, as people have said for such a long time, nothing fights racism like racism on top of racism. It's there was a, gosh, I showed it on the show last night. There was a picture of, I don't know, maybe 20, 30 Democrats standing behind Hakeem Jeffries as he made the major announcement with regard to, this is a terrible racist decision. And the funny thing that really stood out with me with regard to that photo, which I placed up during the show, was, okay, there's Hakeem Jeffries at the podium, and he's surrounded by all these completely black people. Okay, that's fabulous. That's fine, but not one white amongst them. Democrat racists complaining about racism being halted by SCOTUS today. That's something weird. I don't get that, because we needed more racism to create the racism. Then the SPLC stepped in to make sure that they funded racism so that they could fundraise from the racism that they funded. Make it make sense.
And that's just it. I mean, that's one of the things that I've been talking about off and on all week, because I remember when Barack Obama was elected, and as disappointed as I was that my side didn't win, the first thing I thought was, well, maybe racism can finally die in this country. But instead, they found ways to make it worse, because when it actually did start going away, they started making sure that behind the scenes it could still be fomented, and then still using it as a weapon, which honestly, after seeing a clip from today, kind of sort of makes me feel bad for Whoopi Goldberg, but just a little bit, because she's all like having a meltdown about how, white people have dogs near polling places to eat black people so they don't go vote or some shit. I have the clip here. I'm trying to get it pulled up because I didn't play it earlier. I think I'm going to torture people with it now. So give me a moment.
But in the meantime, I mean, who is that? She's, kind of the racist in chief herself on The View. It's consistent with leftism and the leftists.
Well, yeah, it's kind of her whole shtick. So, but yeah, so here she is, and I'll embiggen it in a moment. Thank you for that word, by the way, because it keeps me from having to hit my game.
Word, isn't it?
Usually, because I used to say, "Let me make it bigger," and then I always had to do this because reasons. Giggity giggity, giggity goo. But now I don't have to do that, so thank you. But anyway, so here she is. I'm just gonna play this. It's about 1 minute and 29 seconds. But if this is really how she feels America is, this makes me sad for her. It really does. Even if she is nuts, because she's definitely Delulu if this is what she thinks.
Another problem. We make laws to fix problems. We put the Voting Rights Act together because there was an issue. Because they were keeping people from voting. Right. They were literally shooting people. They were running them down with dogs to keep them from voting. Okay.
How long ago was that, Whoopi? How long ago was that?
Yeah, when is there any years or any amount of time attached to that?
Okay, so I will say this: in the 60s, after the Civil Rights Act was passed, with all of the everything that went sideways, which again was which party that was fighting it so hard?
I was going to say, who opposed that?
Yeah, because guess what? It wasn't us. But here's the thing: that's kind of like I used this analogy the other day, explaining it to somebody else who was like having a meltdown about it. I'm like, this is like when you're teaching a kid how to ride a bike, and you put training wheels on until they get the hang of it, and then eventually you take the training wheels off, and then they get to ride the bike on their own, and they understand that they can do these things now, and they know how. That's how I looked at the Voting Rights Act back in the 60s, because it was necessary. It was kind of like the training wheels for the country, getting them used to this change. But you got to remember, we've had Nichelle Nichols on TV. We've had Whoopi Goldberg, who was inspired by Nichelle Nichols on TV, who went on to play a character on Star Trek The Next Generation so she could keep that legacy going. We've had black senators. We've had black Congress people. The only thing that hasn't happened yet is a black Republican governor, and that's not for lack of trying.